Hello, third grade. All right, we have this book today. It's called Chester's Way by Kevin Hanks. I loved the books from this author when I was growing up. And maybe you do too. If so, I'd like to know. But anyway, what I want you to focus on today when we read this story is making a connection. What does that mean when I say making a connection? So a connection is when you find two things, or you find something that reminds you of something in your own life. So when you read a story, when you're reading, or maybe not a story, maybe it's just a book, and there's something that reminds you of your own life, you can make a connection. Like in the book yesterday, Camilla didn't like lima beans. No, sorry. My goodness. Camilla loved lima beans, but she didn't want anyone to know. I can make a connection to that. I do not like pizza, and I used to not want anyone to know. So we were both embarrassed about food, right? So that's a connection I made. I know that even though that might seem silly, it's just about food, but that can be a real fear because at some point or the other, we're all afraid of being laughed at. But luckily, Camilla learned to face that fear and to be herself. Now we're going to see what happens in this book, Chester's Way. Again, you're focusing on making a connection to your life. So I would focus on making a connection to my life. You would focus on your life. Chester had his own way of doing things. Hello, my name is Chester. I like croquet and peanut butter and making my bed. He always cut his sandwiches diagonally. He always got out of bed on the same side. And he never left the house without double knotting his shoes. Chester always had the same thing for breakfast, toast with jam and peanut butter. And he always carried a miniature first aid kit in his back pocket, just in case. You definitely have a mind of your own, said Chester's mother. That's one way to put it, said Chester's father. Chester's best friend Wilson was exactly the same way. That's why they were best friends. Chester wouldn't play baseball unless Wilson played, and they never swung at the first pitch or slid head first. Wilson wouldn't ride his bike unless Chester wanted to, and they always used hand signals. If Chester was hungry, Wilson was too, but they rarely ate between meals. Some days I can't tell those two apart, said Wilson's mother. Me either, said Wilson's father. Chester and Wilson. Wilson and Chester. That's the way it was. They loved to go on picnics. Once, when Wilson accidentally swallowed a watermelon seed and cried because he was afraid that a watermelon plant would grow inside him, Chester swallowed one too. Don't worry, said Chester. Now if you grow a watermelon plant, I'll grow one too. Chester duplicated his Christmas list every year and gave a copy to Wilson because they always wanted the same things anyway. And duplicated means like copied. So that makes sense because they said he gave a copy to his friend. For Halloween, they always dressed as things that went together. Salt and pepper shakers, 2 mittens on a string, ham and eggs. They really are 2 peas in a pod, said Chester's father. Looks like it, said Chester's mother. I like their Halloween costumes. In spring, Chester and Wilson shared the same umbrella. In winter, they never threw snowballs at each other. In fall, they raked leaves together. And in the summer, they reminded each other to wear sunscreen so they wouldn't burn. Chester and Wilson, Wilson and Chester. That's the way it was. And then Lily moved into the neighborhood. Lily had her own way of doing things. I am Lily. I am the queen. I like everything. Whoa. She likes everything. That's like the complete opposite of Chester and Wilson, right? They have a very set, special way of how they like to do things. But Lily, she likes it all. Let's find out more about her. She wore band-aids all over her arms and legs to look brave. She talked backwards to herself sometimes, so nobody would know what she's saying. And she never left the house without one of her nifty disguises. Lily waved at all the cars that passed by, even if she didn't know who was in them. And she always carried a loaded squirt gun in her back pocket, just in case. She definitely has a mind of her own, said Chester. That's one way to put it, said Wilson. So I wonder if you see right down here, that's her in one of her disguises. Right, so a fancy way of saying costume is disguise. But a disguise is when you especially don't want someone to know that it's you. When Lily asked Chester and Wilson to play, they said they were busy. When she called them up on the phone, they disguised their voices and said they weren't home. If Lily was walking on one side of the street, Chester and Wilson crossed to the other and hid. She's something else, said Chester. Looks like it, said Wilson. I wonder if you can think. Why did they hide from her? Why did they always try to avoid? They didn't want to hang out with her. Why don't you think Chester and Wilson wanted to hang out with Lily? Yeah, she's the complete opposite from them. And that seems to scare them. One day, while Chester and Wilson were practicing their hand signals, some older boys rode by, popping wheelies. They circled Chester and Wilson and yelled unkind things. Chester and Wilson didn't know what to do, and just when they were about to give up hope, a fierce-looking cat with horrible fangs jumped out of the bushes and frightened the other boys away. Here we have the cat picture right here. I always get confused because it's like I'm talking to a mirror. Are you who I think you are? Chester asked the cat. Of course, the cat replied. Thank you, Lily, said Chester. You're welcome, Chester, said Lily. Thank you, Lily, said Wilson. You're welcome, Wilson, said Lily. I'm glad you were wearing that disguise, said Chester. And I'm glad you had your I'm glad you had your squirt gun, said Wilson. I always do, said Lily, just in case. Afterward, Chester invited Lily over for lunch. You have a Muscle Mouse cup? Said Lily. Of course I do, said Chester. I do too, said Lily. Same here, said Wilson. Chester and Wilson cut their sandwiches diagonally. Lily asked Chester's mother if she had cookie cutters, and she made stars and flowers and bells. That's neat, said Chester. Wow, said Wilson. That night, Lily invited Chester and Wilson to sleep over. You have a nightlight, said Chester. Of course, said Lily. I do too, said Chester. Same here, said Wilson. Chester and Wilson wanted toast with jam and peanut butter for breakfast the next morning. Ugh, boring, said Lily. Try this instead. This is good, said Chester. Wow, said Wilson. Oh, man. We have 4 different examples here of them trying some things Lily's way. And what happened when they tried some of the things that Lily liked? Yeah, they also liked them. After that, when Lily asked Chester and Wilson to play, they said yes. When she called them up on the phone, they had nice conversations. And if Lily was walking on one side of the street, Chester and Wilson waved and ran to catch up with her. Chester and Wilson taught Lily hand signals, and she taught them how to pop wheelies. Lily taught Chester and Wilson how to talk backwards, and they taught her how to double knot her shoes. Some days I can't tell those 3 apart, said Lily's mother. Me either, said Lily's father. Chester and Wilson, Wilson and Lily, Lily and Wilson and Chester. That's the way it was. For Halloween, they dressed as the 3 blind mice. For Christmas, Lily gave Chester and Wilson nifty disguises, and they gave her a box of multicolored shoelaces, extra long for double knotting. They loved to go on picnics. When Chester and Wilson told Lily about how they had each swallowed a watermelon seed once, Lily swallowed 3 of them. I'll grow a watermelon plant for each of us, she said. Oh, she's braver than me. In spring, Chester and Wilson and Lily shared the same umbrella. In winter, they never threw snowballs at each other. In fall, they raked leaves together. And in summer, they reminded each other to wear sunscreen so they wouldn't burn. Chester and Wilson and Lily. Lily and Wilson and Chester. That's the way it was. Oh, how nice. And then Victor moved into the neighborhood. Oh, man. Whew, the end. I wonder what's going to happen. All right. So we've read our read aloud for today. Now, you're going to go back on the Google Classroom where this assignment was that you heard the read aloud. Okay? And what I want you to do is I want you to click on the Flipgrid. It's going to be your job to make a connection to this book. I want you to really try and think if there's something in this book that reminded you of your own life. When you click on the Flipgrid, you'll hear my example. So if you're stuck, you can try that. You can try that to see if it, you can try and see if that gives you any ideas. All right, so you're getting out of this, going back to the assignment on Google Classroom, and you're clicking on the Flipgrid to tell us about a connection that you can make to this story, something that reminded you of your life. All right, can't wait to hear your answers.